Kunnen we op? Denkst du, wir werden alle Bande oder willst du nachher gucken gehen, ob ich hinter dir? Ist gut? Okay. Nicolas, ist gut? Nicolas? Können wir? Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry to disturb you. You're all very chatty. I won't be long. My name is Calteux. I'm representing the European Commission here in Luxembourg. So as you might know, the Commission has little embassies in every member state and also in third countries. It's called delegations. And our aim, our objectives is to explain what the European Commission does and what it means for the people living in the respective countries. So I have been invited here this evening to spend a few hours with you on a very important topic, which is very dear to me too, personally, and to explain to you a bit what the representation of the Commission does here in Luxembourg. So we have been, myself and my team, we have been quite active during the last months and years. Although there has been the pandemic, we have organized a lot of online events, webinars on the topic of equality, and tonight we are here proud and in person to celebrate with you together the 2022 edition of the Luxembourg Pride. The representation has become really engaged, really very much since 2019, so just before the sanitary crisis, and together with Rosa Lëtzebuerg we have really put a lot of effort, and I also look at my colleague Diego here. He has been a very active staff of the representation on this. We have been active and we have promoted ASH to become the first LGBTIQ plus freedom zone in Luxembourg. And ASH could that way set the example, and other municipalities have followed since. So I think it's also important that we have this conference here in asbl, which is a trendsetter in many different ways and many different topics. But we have not only worked on the LGBTIQ plus freedom zone, further to a call by the European Commission and the Commissioner for Equality, Helena Dalli, who was also in Luxembourg a few weeks ago. We have also been active throughout the year by the means of conferences, by the means of movie nights. Some of you might have participated. We have been very actively engaged with civil society, with human rights institutions, and also with relevant public authorities. So it's always very important to reach out to those organizations and authorities which can make the difference and which can also speak on your behalf, and that is what we do. And we do this with a very specific objective in mind, and that is to fill the first EU LGBTIQ equality strategy with life. That strategy has been adopted in 2020, and I think it's a major step towards the union of equality the European Commission really strives for. What is the strategy about? It's about awareness raising, it's about promoting change in education, change in behavior, change in societies. It's about fighting disinformation, it's about fighting hate crimes, and it's about recognizing rainbow families, just to give you a few examples. Something which strikes me, whenever there is a new strategy, people think, well, why do we have a strategy? It's just another paper. And then afterwards, people tend to put it into a drawer. No, we need strategies to set ambitious objectives and also to measure progress. And it's really a witness also, the strategy, of the changes which our society undergoes. And it's very important, and we need everyone to fill it with life. According to the latest Rainbow Europe map, Luxembourg is among the top 5 member states where it is good to live as an LGBTIQ plus person. Other member states still have a long way to go. In Luxembourg there have been several progress and several important steps made since over the last few years, but nevertheless, let's not take anything for granted, and let's do more in order to make things move towards a union of diversity, a union of equality, and a union of tolerance, of openness, and of inclusion. Today, with the help of our Europe Direct Information Center. Sonia, where are you? Sonia, hey. We have organized this together with also Rosa Lëtzebuerg, and I welcome you to this important exchange in the presence of several LGBTIQ activists from all over Europe. And those of you who are here, please raise your hands. You will be intervening actively afterwards in the panel, also together with the Luxembourgish MEP Maar. Maar, I don't know if you have already met him. He's really recognized on EU level as a champion for LGBTIQ plus topics, and he's really doing a lot to put this topic forward on the map of the European priorities. And I'm really looking forward to having this exchange with you afterwards, to listen to what you have to say and how you would like to bring forward this important topic. So I hope that we all can learn from each other this evening in the spirit of the European values, which I cannot repeat enough: equality, inclusion, diversity, human rights and tolerance. So happy to be here tonight. Happy Pride, and see you afterwards. Thank you.
So, good evening and thank you, Mrs. Calteux. I want to start with my welcome speech. I will do it in German because it's more fluent. So if you want to just switch on to the headset. Guten Abend und herzlich willkommen bei der diesjährigen Konferenzreihe im Rahmen der Luxembourg Pride Week. Mit der Unterstützung von ASH22 sowie mit unserer Partnerschaft mit dem Ministerium für Familie und Integration, der Europäischen Kommission in Luxemburg und der University of Luxembourg haben wir die großartige Gelegenheit, unsere alljährliche Konferenz auszubauen. Ich möchte mich daher bei Madame Calteux bedanken als Repräsentantin der Europäischen Kommission in Luxemburg und auch bei Frau Ministerin Kahn sowie ihren Teams, dass sie uns bei unserem Vorhaben unterstützt haben. Einen großen Dank geht auch an die University of Luxembourg und speziell an Professor Dr. Pallage und Madame Golini von Europe Direct hier an der Universität, die uns diesen Saal heute ermöglicht haben. Wir blicken auf eine sehr spannende Woche zurück, in der wir die Chance hatten, viele verschiedene Events während unserer Pride Week anzubieten. Damit dies in der uns bekannten Form überhaupt möglich ist, bedarf es zweierlei. Einmal eine starke Community mit vielen Ehrenamtlern, und einmal die Unterstützung von politischer Seite. Dies war ein Kampf, den Rosa Lëtzebuerg und ITGL, doch auch viele AktivistInnen davor seit langer Zeit führen. Nach 3 Jahren in Folge auf dem 3. Platz des ILGA Europe Rainbow Index findet sich Luxemburg 2022 auf Platz 5 wieder. Eine Verschlechterung auf gesetzlicher Ebene gab es zwar nicht, dennoch gibt es noch eine Menge zu tun. Wie die Situation von queeren Menschen anderswo aussieht und welche Arbeit AktivistInnen dort leisten, das ist das Thema unserer heutigen Veranstaltungsreihe. Ich freue mich daher sehr, dass LGBTIQ-Plus-AktivistInnen aus Belgien, Polen, Litauen und Ungarn uns besuchen und über ihre Arbeit berichten. Doch bevor wir zur Diskussionsrunde kommen, freue ich mich außerordentlich, Ihnen zuvor ein wundervolles und sehr wertvolles Projekt vorzustellen. Sie haben es vermutlich bereits am Eingang erblicken können, doch ohne vorgreifen zu wollen, danke ich dem Amsterdam Rainbow Dress Foundation, dass Sie heute hier sind. Und damit überlasse ich Ihnen auch das Wort. Vielen Dank.
Ja, dan willen we naar dia 1. Hier. Dan kan iedereen de foto zien. Yes. En ik moet gewoon vooruit met die. Ja. Ik ga mijn best doen. Hello everybody. My name is Arnoud van Krimpen. I'm a representative of the Amsterdam Rainbow Dress Foundation. And before I start with my story, I'd like to thank Luxembourg Pride for inviting us here in Luxembourg. They invited us and we came. as you have seen by entering the room here, you pass this enormous dress outside. That is the actual dress that you see on the picture here. And for the past 6 years, I have been traveling the world with the Amsterdam rainbow dress. And it's an honor for me to be here today and to show you the artwork and tell you a bit more about it and why we believe it is important that this message is told worldwide. The Amsterdam rainbow dress is a work of art that calls for openness and inclusion, encouraging people to actively contribute to, defend, and share acquired freedoms. The dress is made of 71 national flags from countries where being LGBTIQ+ is criminalized, including 9 countries where homosexual acts can result in the death penalty. The bodies of the dress is made from the city flag of Amsterdam, and this underlines the importance of Amsterdam and the Netherlands remaining open to LGBTIQ+ refugees who are persecuted in their country because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity. For centuries, Amsterdam has been a shelter city for people from all over the world and other places in Europe who were not safe for the ideas they had or the person they were. The Netherlands and Amsterdam as a safe haven, also for LGBTIQ+ refugees from these 71 countries, is not self-evident and needs to be cultivated and maintained. That is why it is important that the people of the Netherlands remain aware of this goal and are committed to develop an atmosphere of openness and inclusion. And naturally, this applies to communities all over the world. And that is why we are honored to present the dress here today during Luxembourg Pride. And that is why the dress is traveling, raising awareness for openness and inclusion around the globe. The Amsterdam rainbow dress is a living work of art. If and when any of the countries in the dress no longer penalize being LGBTIQ+, that flag will be replaced with the rainbow flag. The dress is changing, but far too slowly, and we're not even close to looking at an enormous rainbow dress. It is still a third of the countries in the world that criminalize LGBTIQ+ people. Places where the community is not always safe. And with the Amsterdam rainbow dress, we want to raise awareness about members of our community who are in danger of being arrested, persecuted, tortured, or even murdered by the authorities just because they are who they are. I realize that coming from Amsterdam in the Netherlands and being able to present our work of art in Luxembourg, speaking openly about LGBTIQ+ human rights is a huge privilege. But we all need to realize that the freedom to be able to do that is not set in stone. This freedom was not given to us, it was enforced on the status quo and on those who had the power at that time. It is conceivable that forces arise that want to revive our emancipation, out of a misplaced feeling of superiority from the idea that their worldview, in which inequality is the starting point, should be the norm. At this very moment, within the European Union, and we heard a story about that, sadly enough, we see some sad examples of that. Each minority sometimes has to fight its own battles. But when it comes to inclusive societies, LGBTIQ+ people are often the proverbial canaries in the coal mine. If they are denied equal rights, then oppression is usually lying in wait for others too. In times of renewed nationalism and conservatism, it is more important than ever that we realize that respect for minorities is a basic condition for a democratic and humane society. A society in which minorities are at the mercy of randomness, whether it is the state or a ballot box majority, is not truly free, And individuals who initially benefit from such a system are not truly free either. If a person's freedom depends on the whims of an electorate or the consideration of those in power, no one can assume that they can organize a life to their own views. And being able to live your life according to your own being and ideas is the essence of a free, modern, and humane society. Even if that does not match with the lifestyle of the majority, even if that does not correspond with certain religious principles. So, that is another message we want to convey with the Amsterdam rainbow dress. In addition to our call for eliminating anti-LGBTIQ+ legislations, we want to make our own community and our allies constantly aware that freedom needs to be maintained. Freedom needs love. Freedom needs care, because it is the most precious thing we have. To all of you gathered here, I say, we need all your boldness, all your intelligence, and all your courage, because we have some tough problems to solve. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So, why are so many LGBTIQ+ people still oppressed? Why do so many have to fear for their safety? And what can we, human rights activists, politicians, pride organizations, and civil societies do about that? We should all, and Fleur, I really want you to get outraged again, we should all be outraged when people suffer discrimination. Oppression is always political, often religious, sometimes traditional, but never natural. Human rights apply to all human beings. The choice to exclude certain groups from protection endangers not just these groups, but society as a whole. Almost 60 years ago, Martin Luther King observed that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Also, in my home country, the fight is far from over. In the Netherlands, half of LGBTIQ+ young people sometimes think of suicide. I repeat, and let it sink in, half. Compared to other young people, they also attempt suicide more often. Among young transgender people, the numbers are even more depressing. 70% have thought of suicide at least once, and a staggering 20% have attempted to kill themselves. 1 out of 5. Feelings of rejection, shame, and even worthlessness all contribute to these numbers. And these feelings are not natural, they are instilled by society. They are the result of taboos, of intolerance, of peer pressure. And until these social causes are eradicated, until societies and cultures have become truly inclusive, injustice will prevail. The Amsterdam Rainbow Dress Foundation believes that art is an excellent way to get this message across. By interesting people with a beautiful object, we lower the threshold to talk about the less beautiful and uncomfortable story behind it. That is why, in addition to the dress itself, we also make a photo series of the Amsterdam rainbow dress at iconic locations worldwide. Beautiful images to tell a not-so-beautiful story. Luxembourg is, of course, also part of this series. Last year, we photographed the Amsterdam rainbow dress here in Luxembourg. For our photo series, we worked together with photographers and models from the local LGBTIQ+ communities all over the world. And I would like to thank our Luxembourg model and photographer, Edson and Pitt Rading, for their will and the courage to connect their personal stories and art to our artwork. Thank you so much. You help us spread our story. For now, I think it might be nice, since we have this enormous screen here, to show you a few of the pictures that we took in the past years, in the past six years when we traveled all over the world. The first picture you see here was taken in San Francisco City Hall. What we always try with the pictures we take is to either find a location or a model or a moment in time to make the picture that really connects to our story. What we have done here is a, well, for a start, a lesbian model in the rainbow dress in City Hall in San Francisco on the actual stairs where Harvey Milk was killed on his birthday. So that was, the picture is loaded, you could say. Well, you might recognize this. It's just around the corner. We took it last year, here in Luxembourg, with Edson. Last Monday, he sang 2 songs at the commemoration ceremony in Ash here. Another one here around the corner with Edson. And another one, and as you can see, this is the European area where, well, you might know it there, and good to take a picture there as well, we thought. This was the very first picture we took. It's in Amsterdam, in the Rijksmuseum, right in front of Rembrandt's Night Watch. What I said at the beginning of my talk, that Amsterdam has been a shelter city for ages, and that all started when Antwerp moved all to Amsterdam at the end of the 16th century, and it made Amsterdam extremely wealthy in the 17th century. But there were a lot of refugees from all over Europe coming to Amsterdam, and this is also why we thought it might be, besides it's a beautiful picture, of course, but it has a story. Well, you might recognize this model that we have here. She's sitting right in front here, Fleur. We took this picture with her in Antwerp. I think it was 2019. Yes. Well, they're a model with a story. This is in the European Parliament with a transgender model, Belgium transgender model, well, showing it in the Parliament. This was South Africa, and this was on the 10th of December, International Human Rights Day, right in front of the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. Madrid, Seoul. I could tell about all the pictures, but let's go on, right? Another one from Seoul. This was taken last month in Mozambique, and I told Fleur earlier, this was a really interesting trip for us because we were invited. Our most loyal partner is the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They invite us to all these places around the world. But this was actually in Beira, which is the ash of Mozambique, the second city in Mozambique. And we had a courtesy meeting in the morning with the mayor there, together with our Dutch ambassador. And I invited the mayor to come to the photo shoot later that day. And he actually came. And he talked to the press that was also present there. And they took pictures. And it was actually the first time that a politician, an important politician for Beira, the mayor, was talking openly about this issue and being photographed in front of, well, at a project like this. So for the community there, and also for us, this was a really, really beautiful moment. This was in Canada, as well as this one, and the good thing for us was that we had this model, Isis Couture, and for the fans here, maybe present, I don't know, the week after we took this picture, she won Canada's drag race. So suddenly we had an enormous following from the drag race community. Also Isis Couture, and in the background you have Parliament Hill in Ottawa. This is very high up in the CN Tower in Toronto. This is what we took last month in Rotterdam. Since in the Netherlands we had only photographed in Amsterdam, so it was time to photograph in a different city than just Amsterdam. well, I don't have to tell you where this is, I presume. Athens, Berlin, another one in Berlin. I really love this picture. You wanna? They're all on our website or on the socials. Follow our socials. Then you can see all the pictures as long as you want. And this is what we took 2 weeks ago when we had the honor to meet Alicja. Alicja, oh, she's outside, I think, in Poland, in Warsaw, at Warsaw Pride. So, some of our pictures. But for 71 more flags, we will continue to inform people and call on policymakers to fight for LGBTIQ+ human rights, and call on civil societies to fight against injustice, discrimination, and violence. It concerns all societies, and it concerns all of society. We will do so through our artivism. Happy Pride, and remember, Pride is resistance. Thank you very much.
Dan de video. Wat zeg je? Dan nu de video.
Now they say you're beautiful. Now they say you're beautiful. Now they say you're beautiful. Now they say you're beautiful.
I could actually rock this look. Hollywood. But let me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait. Good
This
to
will be
have you
cool.
here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. The makeup
Cool.
went well.
Yes, yeah.
My name is Arnoud van Krimpen. I am with the Amsterdam Rainbow Dress Foundation here in Luxembourg, and we're honored to be invited here. The Amsterdam Rainbow Dress is a project that we started 5 years ago in 2016. The Europride was in Amsterdam. Flags were paraded through Amsterdam of the countries where they have anti-LGBT legislations. And we decided to make a dress out of it. And, well, ever since we did that, the whole project took off, and now we travel the world with a dress made out of flags of countries that criminalize LGBT.
Wir sind heute echte Mädchen von der Pride Week. Das ist traditionell die Nacht, wo wir eine Kommemorationszeremonie haben, wo wir den Opfer von queerphober Gewalt gedenken. Das wäre ganz besonders interessant, weil wir nämlich am Kader von Recht 22 ein Kunstprojekt zu bestimmen. Und das ist in Amsterdam Rainbow Dress. Ziel ist es, für irgendwann ganz klar eine Rebefuhren zu haben. Immer dann, wenn ein Land seine Legislation anpasst.
Wir kommen zu der Zeremonie traditionell. Heute als Rednerin eine Aktionswoche, an der wir Diversität an die queer Kultur feiern. Schneider, Rainbow City am Lëtzebuerg Land, an die Stadt Uni.lu, wir haben die ganze Gemeinderat am 1. 2021 zur LGBTIQ Freedom Zone erklärt gelassen.
Ein Amsterdam Rainbow Dress weist aus, dass es noch immer 71 Länder gibt, an denen Homosexualität per Gesetz de facto verboten ist.
Wir erinnern dafür, wie wichtig es ist, dass der explizite Schutz für queere Menschen an einer Verfassung steht.
me break it down for you. My name is E. I come from a place that doesn't believe in dreams. I make mistakes, I'm full of shame. Since I was a kid, they said that something's wrong with me.
If you think deeper, it kind of is emotional though. It's very historical and I feel very honored to be part of this. Because if you can just imagine how the dress would look like with all of the rainbows on it, if one day we get to that, it will be amazing. So I feel proud and honored to be representing and an advocate for this cause and to wear it here in Luxembourg.
Mic is still on, yes. So with that, thank you as well for Arnold Paul as well. It was also the confident traveling companion everywhere. Normally we were supposed to start at 7, right, Andy? Yeah. So we have a little break before that, or do we start immediately? Okay. Then Mark Angel, Alicja, Johanna, where's Johanna by the way? Okay, so everyone, for the participants, please come down so we can do the setup. Okay, als een hond? Nee.
Yes. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I think we can start then, right? If the mics are all working. Would be good. Mooi. Alles goed. Seems to work, good. And the last one. No, just leave it on. It should be fine with that, yeah. Weil sonst sprachen zu lang für den Mund zu gehen. Perfect. I wish you all a very nice evening. Welcome from my part as well, very hearty welcome. I know some of you have been here the whole day, so I'm trying really to keep the schedule tight. First off, we're going to start with this panel. I mean, all of you have heard or read or maybe witnessed yourself physical attacks, online abuse, and also legislative setback. It wasn't an easy time for the LGBTIQ+ community in Central and Eastern European countries the past years. The populist government in Hungary and in Poland, to cite only these two, they have used, for example, all the frustrations, all the fear that there has been surrounded by the pandemic, all this climate of negativity, they have used this to push through some really anti-LGBT legislation. And we want to basically explore today what does it look like, what does it really look like, the legislation on the ground with these activists. I'm gonna ask them a few questions about their real life experience in their own countries. We also want to discuss the community throughout Europe. How is it connected? Is there a network? And also how can the EU, that's by you, Mark Angel, how can they support and help the cause in Eastern countries? And what can you do? What can civil society basically do to help the struggle in Eastern European countries? And as I said, I'm not here to answer to these questions. I'm already the person who asks the questions. So I'm going to introduce you to our dear guests today. And right now, please forgive my pronunciation. I'm really bad with Eastern European names. So it's Alicja, Sienkiewicz from Poland. Yes, I'm going to look at you. Yes, I've listened to your lecture just before about Sienkiewicz. Nearly there. Johanna Martodix. I see. Well, I'm just going to call them by their first name. They're going to introduce themselves, I think. And then Monica, which is next to me. You're from, Monica here, you are from Lithuania, Hungary, Poland. And we have Mark Angel, at least one name I can pronounce. He's from Luxembourg. He's a member of the Socialist Party and an MEP, member of the European Parliament. And basically what I'm going to start with, because you guys, you're playing a role as well. Any questions that pop up during this evening, please put it down or remember it until the end. Usually there are many questions and we have actually reserved like half an hour for your questions towards the end in our Q&A. But first, I'm going to come to my guests. I'm going to start with you, Monica. Can you just give me a small introduction of who you are, since when have you been active in the LGBTIQ+ community, and what is your role right now?
Hello everybody, it's a huge honor to be here today. My name is Monica Antonaitita, I come from Lithuania, and I'm active as an LGBTIQ activist only since 2019. But I have legal background and I was active as a pro bono supporter of human rights for nearly 10 years before joining forces with Baltic Pride and with LGL, Lithuanian Gay League, that is.
Joanna, then the same question to you, obviously.
Hello everyone, my name is Johanna Majerczyk, but you can call me also Joanna, there is no problem. I come from Budapest Pride, which is one of the biggest LGBTQI organization, NGOs in Hungary. I joined the organization in 2015, and now I am a board member and a spokesperson of the organization. I have no legal background, because I have a degree in film studies, and when I joined Budapest Pride, I went there to organize film festivals and cultural events. Yeah.
So some of you have already met Monica, I think. So Alicja, now Alicja, she has been giving a short lecture just before. She has been talking about the LGBT free zones in Poland. I think we're gonna ask her a bit of, because some of you just came here now, so we're going to ask a few questions about that later on, but first you could maybe introduce yourself as well, Alicja. It's not working?
Now it's working.
Ah, perfect.
Alicja Sienkiewicz. Yeah, I'm from Poland, and I'm a member of the board of Lublin Equality March Association, and also Camera Femina Foundation, which is about women's rights. The first one is, of course, organized of Pride in Lublin. And what I'm doing, okay, my story. It's began in 2018, I think. I was 17, yeah, now I'm 21. And now I think I'm during some kind of change. I hope to do something more, different from Pride, like a center for LGBTQI plus youth in the city, what I'm just started to do. And yeah, I think that's everything.
And Mark Gangel, I already introduced him. He's, let's say, the politician of this round. He's the one who's usually being confronted with a lot of questions about how you can help with the struggle within the parliament. Mark, what has been your contact with the LGBTIQ plus community, and how have you been involved, and since when, maybe?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and I'm so happy to be next to these activists because it makes me 30 years younger. When I used to be an activist, I was an HIV/AIDS activist. You know, I came out in the 80s, and it was bad times at that time for gay men, and I became very active in helping NGOs here in Luxembourg. I was a founder of Stop AIDS Now. I was then later also one of the founders of Rosa Lëtzebuerg, and that's how this reminds me now of my time as an activist. And then I got involved into politics, where I was a member of Luxembourg Parliament for 16 years, where I was really happy that I could vote the law of same-sex marriage, our law on gender recognition, legal gender recognition. And I know how important the activists were, and the NGOs and civil society was, because without them we would have never had a big, we voted this with huge majority in our parliament, and it was thanks to them that we had that. Now I'm a member of the European Parliament since 2019, and I became the co-chair together with Terry Reinke from the German Greens. I'm the co-chair of the LGBTI Intergroup. The LGBTI Intergroup is a group of 157 members of the European Parliament. We're the biggest intergroup from 5 political groups, and every member state is also represented. And of course they are not all gay or lesbian, and we used to have a trans member. Unfortunately, she left the parliament. She's now the Vice Prime Minister of Belgium, Petra de Soeter. But we have 150 members, and they are allies, and this allyship is very, very, very important. And of course, we work very much in Brussels, in the Brussels bubbles with the European LGBTI civil society. But beyond that, we also work a lot with civil society on the ground. I have a lot of friends in Budapest. Vicky, by the way, from Budapest Pride. In Poland, I was at the Warsaw Pride also. We also go to Pride marches, especially Pride marches where it's a bit more complicated, where we are invited. And I'm really overwhelmed when I see the civil society and the activists in these countries where it's more difficult. And they do a fantastic work. So we can talk later into details when the questions come, but it's so good to be with you, and I know what a great work you do under very difficult conditions sometimes.
Yeah, definitely more difficult conditions nowadays in the Eastern European countries than in the West. That's as much as we can say. But basically what we want to find out is, how does it feel like actually to live on the ground? I mean, we can come to your cities and we can come to your prides, but that's going to be a different setting and a different background to what you live in your everyday life. So we are very happy that you're here, Alicja, Johanna, and Monica. I'm going to start with you, Alicja, because I think that one of the real low points in the recent years is the creation of the so-called LGBT ideology-free zones. I mean, everywhere in Europe, people were really shocked. Did this come to you as a shock, or were you kind of expecting your government to push through this legislation?
The story has the beginning when a president of Warsaw, mayor of Warsaw, signed a paper called, don't know the name, but something with LGBTQI people rights. And when he did it, we already knew that the right-wing ruling party will have to do something opposite. And so that wasn't a shock, but the shock was when I realized that now it's over 30% of a country. So the first LGBT free zone is a small city near Lublin. I'm from Lublin. It's small, so this case wasn't so loud out the media, but the second one is Lublin voivodeship, so the big region when I do live, and that was hard. Especially because I had a speech as I was speaking earlier during the voting, and yeah, that was, you know what, that was disgusting. How they talk about us, how, you know, I had a speech. Let's imagine, I had a speech in some of like this place, and I'm talking to them that, okay, it's, you know what, it's just hurting. I'm a person. We are just normal people. We want to live here. We want to have rights. We want to marry our loved ones. We want to be protected and just feel safe, and we don't want to look around all the time to, you know, be just careful for any possibilities. And then it was 2 or 3 minutes a speech because they that was my deadline. And then a ministry. Now he's a Ministry of Education. Then he was a mayor of the region of Lubelskie Voivodeship, and he stood up in front of me, in front of them, and said something like, "Look what they do. They want to run with a fur and rainbow flags in their butts. They just running around across the streets naked, and they want to teach our children of masturbation, and they just want to break our tradition, our Catholic large and really important morals, and we can't do nothing. We have to fight with them." And I'm like, with who? With what? What do you want to fight for or opposite? I don't know, because I just told you that it's just hurting me, and I want to live in this region, just live, and now you want to fight with LGBT ideology, because they don't see us, they don't see because it's not existing, but they see ideology.
You feel definitely more threatened since those ideology-free zones have been put into place. You have been threatened more than before.
I'm not sure if threatened is right word. I mean,
maybe intimidated, or
I think the LGBT free zones has two it's two main things about it. I think it's the counter demonstrators has right support to violence, and we as an activists have like the freezing process. I have to think twice before I do anything. I have to think about the consequences, and if it's safe for me and my friends and my family, because for example, when I for the first time told in interview where do I live, and I lived in a small village near Lublin, I got death threats, and not just for me, because I have gotten death threats like a couple times. It was, I just got used to it already. But then was the first time when I read something like, okay, now we know where she lives. We can beat her up and burn her house down. So I was, okay, now it's not just about me, it's about my family.
Joanna, I'm going to switch over to you and to the situation in Hungary, because when we basically talking here about the Eastern European countries and how they fare, we usually say Poland, and then afterwards we say Hungary, and that's unfortunately in a very bad way, but the situation is like that. So Hungary hasn't fared any better recently. There has been, I mean, many of you probably heard about the propaganda law. What's the climate currently in Hungary?
So to answer your question, I would like to start with the results of the parliamentary elections in April, because our Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has been re-elected for the first time and for 4 years again, and with a 2/3 majority in the parliament. So practically they can do anything in the parliament with this majority. Lots of people in Hungary hoped at the beginning of the year that there would be a change of government, but it didn't happen. So now many people are hopeless and desperate. As for the LGBTIQ community and their allies, I would say that there is a huge outrage currently. Within the community, and many LGBTIQ people want to escape the country, and this is a sad thing to say, that they would like to escape the country. They would like to. They are already preparing to move out of the country, to move to an LGBTIQ friendly country in order to find a new home. This is very sad. So in general, this is the situation in Hungary right now regarding the queer community.
That's something that Alicja mentioned before as well, that many of, when she gave her speech, that many in her country were fleeing as well, and that it kind of weakens already the cause in the country if you want to fight back and people are leaving, because it's a difficult choice to make. Am I going to stay basically and fight? Do I really want to live and be able to just live a normal life, basically, when you come, for example, to Luxembourg, where life is much better, not perfect, but much better. I'm going to turn to you, Monica. Lithuania is not really sticking out like Hungary and Poland. However, you pointed even out that you had a very successful Pride recently. Yet you do still lack a lot of political support. So can you tell us a bit how the climate is in your country?
Well, I'm still rather ecstatic and euphoric after our very successful Baltic Pride, as we were rather thirsty for Baltic Pride, because we did not have it for since 2019, and perhaps you know we are organizing it on a rotational basis with our other Baltic neighbors, Estonia and Latvia. So yes, we were thirsty, we were happy, we are still euphoric after Baltic Pride, because with each passing Baltic Pride, you know, you can sort of feel the shift in our society, that society does become more accepting, more tolerant. I do not like that word, but yes, tolerant, and willing to perhaps proceed with further developments. But when it comes to our political will, it is rather non-existent. And I have a proposition for for Amsterdam's rainbow dress artists, because there are 6 countries in the European Union that does not have any sort of family rights recognition for same-sex families, and that includes, unfortunately, my country, Lithuania. So yeah, there was some developments in terms of proposing gender-neutral partnership law and then civil union law, but you know, I'm a rather demanding person and I really want something more than symbolism for the sake of symbolism. In order to, you know, have a dignified regulation, we need to have joint adoption, second parent adoption, and so forth and so forth. But those proposals did not offer any such regulation, unfortunately. But still, it did not pass, and we are still waiting even for this kind of compromised option of same-sex family recognition.
Mark Angel, I think I'm just going to give them the next question to you. When you hear about all these different situations, I mean, when you are in parliament and you have many different colleagues, and you might pop into one of your colleagues from Poland or from Hungary or even from Lithuania, how do you address these issues? Do you address them, and how could you encourage them to basically help the activists in their country with their struggles?
Of course, we address these subjects a lot in the European Parliament, be it in the plenary, for example, as a reaction to the LGBTI free zones in Poland. We declared the whole European Union LGBTI freedom zone, and we had a resolution in the European Parliament which had 490 people voting in favor, and this means that the allyship I talked about in the intergroup is even bigger, but that was also rather symbolic. But we push also the Commission to go and have infringement procedures. There is an infringement procedure already against Hungary, there is one against Poland, and we got good news that in the July package there will be more infringements procedures also against Poland and Hungary. An infringement procedure is when the Commission tells a country you are doing something which goes against the European treaties. So we're really pushing, and we are pushing the commissioners, especially Commissioner Reinders and Commissioner Jourova, to be very vigilant on what happens in these countries. I just want to say it's not Poland or Hungary or a Baltic state where the problem is and their people, it's the governments, and it's state-sponsored homo and transphobia which we live there. First of all, it was the refugees, 2015, the refugee crisis. They won elections with the refugee crisis. Then the refugee problem was not so present anymore, and then there was new elections coming up, and they needed again another enemy to divide society, and then they chose the LGBTI community, and within the LGBTI community even more the trans and intersex people. They were even more harder hit in Hungary when in the beginning of COVID with Article 33, etc. So this is really disgusting, and what is also very terrible is that when politicians and elected politicians, and even the President Duda during the campaign in Poland, the presidential campaign, when he really had hate speech against, and this triggers, you know, when people see hate speech by politicians who should be role models, this can very quickly go into hate crime then, because then the limit is very, so this is quite worrisome, and therefore we really try to react. We have We have written questions which we put to the Commission. We have oral questions in the plenary. We are now planning a case in September. You know the case of baby Sarah in Bulgaria. Baby Sarah is this baby who still doesn't have a passport, who is stateless. There's two mothers. One mother is Bulgarian, the other mother is from Gibraltar, and they gave birth in Spain, so they got a birth certificate where the two mothers are on it, and then Bulgaria doesn't recognize it. The same case, and the European Court of Justice has done very good jurisprudence also on the famous Coleman-Hamilton case, the Romanian case, where the Romanian citizen, Mr. Coleman, was married to an American citizen. They moved to Romania, and Mr. Hamilton didn't get permanent residency because they wouldn't recognize their partnership. They won in the European Court of Justice. Romania still hasn't changed the law, and we are also pushing now that Romania should. We had resolutions in the Parliament to call that Romania should also have an infringement procedure on this. So we're trying. We work very closely also with. We follow what the European Court of Justice says, and we're trying to have a very gender-inclusive language in several texts. For example, I'm a shadow rapporteur. I work on a text on a directive on pay transparency, which is a directive which wants to help combat the gender pay gap. You know that women still earn 14% less than men in average in the European Union. And when we talk about men and women in this text, of course, we see men and women in all their diversity. And also we put an article in it based on jurisprudence from the European Court of Justice, so that trans people, that all other people are included. And the problem is that in the Council, because of the governments of Poland and Hungary, the words gender disappear, and also the word intersectional when we want to talk about intersectional discrimination. These are words they hate. That's also why they hate the Istanbul Convention, the word gender. And to finish is, they insult us also in the Parliament, the representatives of these political parties. And there's representatives also from Western European countries. This is in France, the German AfD, in French, the Rasse. They're all on one line on this. They call us an ideology, but we are not an ideology. We are, first of all, wonderful human beings. And we are human rights activists, because if you fight for women's rights, if you fight for LGBTI rights, you are an activist for human rights defender. You defend human rights. And they are the ideologists, because they want to bring us back into a patriarchal society where they want they are ultra-religious and they don't want any change. And therefore, we really have to be very vigilant. And there is also a pattern which we discover in Europe is, first, it's LGBTI rights, and then it's women's rights. In Poland, we have the perfect example with the legislation on abortion, etc. So we have to be very vigilant on these things.
You said a few very interesting things that I might pick up on, but first I want to ask another question, because you just mentioned that there's a lot of things that you're trying to do and to push over. However, we all know that on the ground it takes a lot of time. Even like when the European Union decides to basically encourage or stimulate a conversation in a country, the countries can still decide to do however they choose to do. How do you feel about that? It must be kind of frustrating if you are having an activist heart, as I hear you do.
It was frustrating because it took the Commission a long time to react and to put infringements procedures. And we always told them, because we were in contact with the activists in Poland, in Hungary, and in other countries. And we saw that their last hope is, the last threat they hold on was the European Union. They have very high expectations in the European Union, and therefore it's very important that we do not disappoint them. But also, and they know it and everybody knows it, the European Union can only do what it is in the treaties, what it can do, and on several things we cannot legislate. But therefore, I think it's also very important to recall that this European Commission, President von der Leyen was she wants to push this union towards a union of equality. And for the first time, she appointed a commissioner only dedicated to equality. And I'm so happy that Calteux and Diego are here. Anne is the representative of the European Commission here, and she also knows how committed the Commission is to fight towards this union of equality. And Commissioner Dalli came out with a gender equality strategy, an LGBTI equality strategy, a disability strategy, a Roma strategy, an anti-racism strategy, and these strategies have to talk to each other so that there's the whole intersectional aspect is also, and these strategies, they propose legislation on European level where the treaties allow us to have legislation, and then they push countries and they give recommendations to countries, they push countries to have LGBTI action plans. So we're trying to push also this agenda. We will have some good legislation. We have the proposal on hate speech and hate crime, where the Commission now hopes that the Council will move off this so that we have a good legislation later on hate speech and hate crime, also when it's targeted against LGBTIQ plus people. We will have in the now in autumn, there will be a directive on recognition of parenthood, because we worked a lot on the rainbow families, and this is not only a problem in Eastern Europe, this is a problem all over Europe. So I always want to stress that. For example, if you look at the ILGA rainbow map, you would be surprised that some countries very much in the east have very good points. For example, Montenegro in the Western Balkans is doing a lot of progress. So we must pay attention that
not to generalize, basically.
Yes, but and what I want to say is I was in last year I was in Riga at the Baltic Pride, and the Baltics, you're on track. I saw these youths, I saw the people there. It was amazing. These young people, a lot of non-binary. It was so modern. I felt like old-fashioned as a white gay man. I felt a bit like not part of it anymore, but they were very inclusive. They didn't discriminate. But the countries are on track, and the population, the civil society will push these politicians and kick these politicians out who haven't understood that the society is much further on than
I'm all for having a positive outlook on what's good, but it's also about addressing the issues that are there. One thing you did say and mention was that when I said that basically the feeling, the climate might be a bit bad, you said, well, it's not the people, it's the governments. However, the people also vote for their governments. So that's another question that I want to address. So basically politics is one part, but what about civil society? So I'm going to start with you again, Alicja, in Poland. When you talk politics, is really one side of the whole equation, but the people, yes, they vote for some parties, but sometimes the legislation might not be what they want. How do you feel that civil society is regarding the LGBTIQ plus community in Poland? Do you feel that there is a push for more openness or for more tolerance, or do you feel that currently it's the other way around?
I would say definitely push, and I think, I don't know what's, like the beginning, why, and etc. I'm sure that that's our work, and I could see three things. I think one of them is our women's rights strikes last year or 2 years ago. Time runs so fast. Last year, yeah. They were huge. People were just, we have had huge demonstrations before, but now, like random people who just, you would not expect to do anything in public, just were participants of strikes. And one of the things which is great in Polish activism, I think, is the women's right and LGBTQI people rights is they're like together all the time. I mean, we don't say women, we say like people who can get birth, and so that's the first thing. The second one is I saw some survey. To be honest, I'm not like reading everything right now because of different things. But I saw something like, I think about 60 or 70% of majority is of population in Poland is saying yes to partnerships, to register relationships, same-sex couples, and it's also a big increase of people who would say yes to adoption, which is good,
Yeah.
like shocking, I would say.
Shockingly good, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and I can see that it's more and more like rainbow flags, or I'm talking about my girlfriend, and you know, a couple years ago it's girlfriend or boyfriend. Use a boyfriend. Use a boyfriend.
Okay.
and now it's like more and more aware. People are more and more aware of our community. So yeah, I think the society is getting more better this year, especially.
Joanna, I want to ask the same question basically to you. Although before I was asking you also about the propaganda law, I just want to take the occasion because you're here. What have you witnessed firsthand, or what has your community witnessed because of this propaganda law that has been passed? What is the personal feeling? And then afterwards, obviously, I will ask you, how do you feel that the community is accepted or not accepted by civil society?
So the propaganda law wasn't the first anti-LGBTQ legislation in Hungary. All this started in 2020. And as for the propaganda law, at the beginning, it was intended for child protection. So the bill was introduced in the parliament against pedophilia. But then it took a new direction with an amendment, and the amendment already mentioned the queer community, and in the amendment the homosexuality and pedophilia was mixed up. So that was the moment when the LGBTQI NGOs and the whole community and the allies and our friends and our family members said that, okay, enough is enough. So we immediately organized a big demonstration. We organized it in only 3 days, if I remember well. And 10,000 people gathered in front of the parliament. 10,000 people in Hungary is a huge number, taking in consideration the number of people who usually attend demonstration in Hungary in Budapest. But sadly, it wasn't enough because the law was passed the next day. Then, after the law was passed in the parliament, we organized again another demonstration, but now in front of the residence of the president, and we asked the LGBTIQ people to write letters to the president, telling him that they're coming out stories. Sadly, our demonstration wasn't successful because I think that the next day the president of the country signed the law, so it came into force in July, still last year. And that's the reason why there was and there is still a huge outrage in the country. But I wouldn't like to hide that there are positive things coming up from this. For example, last year we celebrated our biggest Pride March ever with 35,000 participants. Usually there are only 20-25,000 people attending our Pride March, so this was really huge. and because people were already fed up with the government, and before we hadn't had the opportunity to protest because of the pandemic situation. So last year was the first time we could go to the street and protest against what is happening in the country. But going back to the propaganda law, there are teachers who are using the tool of civil disobedience, and despite what the law says, they are speaking about LGBTIQ issues with their students, which is a very positive, which is a good thing. But there are also negative consequences as well. So, for example, 2 gay doctors were beaten last year in Pallage, which is the fifth biggest city in the country. A bookshop chain was fined for a children's book depicting rainbow families because the bookshop chain didn't provide information within the bookshop about selling books with non-traditional content. And to mention a recent consequence, recent results of the propaganda law, it concerns our campaign video. We are creating a campaign video each year for our festival. We did it this year as well. In the video you can see two young men getting lost separately in the forest, and at the end of the film they find each other, and they are holding hands at the sunset. This is the film, very simple, and we wanted to show the film, the campaign film in TV channels as a public, this is a public advertisement. It's kind of
a broadcast.
Yeah. And we usually do this without any problem. But this year we got a refusal email from a commercial TV channel referring to the propaganda law that our campaign film is portraying homosexuality. So
you can say basically that despite all the effort that's being made to undermine you and to suppress you, you're still saying the positive outcome is we had the biggest pride that we had, and maybe in general the reception that you feel in your country.
Yeah, and more and more volunteers come to the Budapest Pride. More and more people would like to get involved and do something.
Maybe it's interesting also to mention, you are very humble, you should mention the great success you had at the referendum when they had the election, which unfortunately Orban won. There was at the same time a referendum where Orban had on a very tricky, disgusting way, put the questions on that law. He wanted to have the referendum which would then say, you see, the population accepts this law, and you made a fantastic, civil society made a fantastic campaign so that the referendum was not legal, not recognized, because there was not enough people voting. You called people to vote to make it the ballots invalid, and there was a majority of invalid ballots. To that anti-propaganda law, I always say it's a Russian-style law. It's a copy-cut-paste of the Kremlin, of Putin's anti-LGBTI propaganda law. It's exactly the same. It's just written into Hungarian and a bit adapted in Hungarian. Unfortunately now, a Romanian politician from the Hungarian minority took the law, and it has already passed the Romanian Senate, which is really worrisome. And in Poland, they wanted to have a similar law too, but fortunately then the President Duda did not sign the law. And this law is against press freedom, as we already heard, but also against the United Nations Children's Rights Charter. I'll give you an example. Last year during Pride Week here in Luxembourg, a colleague of yours from RTL called me and she said, I'm doing a kids show here. Can you explain in an easy language why there is a Pride Week and why we need that? And I gave a nice interview and it was no problem. Nobody in Hungary, the journalist, the TV station would have had a fine, and me as a politician, I would have also had a fine because I would have gone against that law. Can you imagine that? The books, for example, I translated now a children book where there is 2 mummies and 2 daddies, 2 different stories. If there is any content like that in Hungary, that book is sealed in plastic. It has to have a stamp on it, and it's like treated like porn magazines were treated here 20 years ago. You know, this is really, really terrible. But your campaign in the referendum was amazing. I think that shows how strong the civil society is in Hungary and in Poland. I'm amazed about their strengths. And we're going to see Commissioner Dalli next week. And I've been to Poland 2 weeks ago. And you do so much also for the refugees, LGBTI refugees from Ukraine. And you have very, very little financial means, and no European money is coming directly to you. And this is also something we are going to address, how the civil society of Poland and Hungary and the countries who have so many LGBTI refugees from Ukraine can also get European money.
So we actually can see that in the, well, with the example of your states, unfortunately, we can see that how easily some rights that have been fought for and that we thought might be given at some point can be retracted again, undermined again, and oppressed again. And these currents, they are also, you see them everywhere. You see them in our country. We also have a party that occasionally tries to criticize. There was an issue about a school play with the title of Kangaroo, and the kangaroo apparently was gay, and that was a problem. So like really, they might take any occasion. So that leads me to my question, the next one maybe to you, Monica. When we know that any time, anything can happen to given rights, we know that activism is the only way, strong activism in a country, the only way to fight back. How are you organized in Lithuania as a community, and what are you currently working on?
Well, actually, mostly we work on advocacy because little known fact, or perhaps a little bit of a forgotten fact, that Lithuania lives not with a separate anti-gay propaganda law, but with an anti-gay propaganda provision since 2009. So, and if you asked any representative from, let's say, executive or the legislative, he or she or they would say that this provision is not being applied in a discriminatory manner. So it exists, but it is not being applied according to politicians. Why it is not applied? It is because of activism, because probably our political sector became aware that there is resistance against it, and thus it is not being applied in a discriminatory manner, although such occasions can be observed still to this day. As for our organization, of course, we are not only Pride organization, but you know, Pride is a landmark event for us. For example, in 2010, when the first Pride was organized, then I was not out. I was even afraid to participate, and for a good reason. And look at me now. I organized the Pride, so yeah.
Yay!
So yeah, that's great, and it shows that activism really works. It leaves landmark, it perhaps creates new landmarks. But yeah, we're not solely a Pride organization. We dedicate a lot of effort on advocacy, of engaging in participating in human rights mechanism, including universal periodic review and so on and so forth. So Also, we try to help our young generation because we launched the first emotional platform, especially dedicated to provide psychological support for young LGBT persons and their teachers. So yes, activism, I think our example really shows that activism really works even when our legislation does not work in favor of LGBTIQ people.
Great, thank you for this very personal statement as well that you just made. I think it is important to talk about activism and also about how we can support activists, so how the networks are being connected throughout Europe. Alicia, do you feel that the support through the communities within Europe is big enough, or do you have like a wish where you'd say we would wish that we'd have a bit more support of communities from other countries? Always a difficult question, so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it could be like more of networking in our society, but I also think that not every organization, not every organizer should want to be in that network, and but I do. That's why I'm a proud member of European Pride Organizers Association. That's where we get to know each other with Nicholas, and I think it's every event, every journey with these people is just so empowering. It's like, you know, when you have so bad period and you know you will go to, for example, Copenhagen for IPRA IGM, and that was like, that's a real story from 2021, my story. And I was like, okay, I have to go there. I will go there. That's what I do every year. And I was there for a week, and it was so great because of people, not because of Copenhagen or events or parties or alcohol or anything, you know, that's just the people. And now I'm an EPRA member for 4 years, yeah, as I said already, and I know so many great people, and now I think that I want to maybe someday will be a board member of this organization, because it's matter for us. It has a strong impact on our self-care, to be honest, to also exchange information, exchange our stories, getting friends, but also take care of each other and of ourselves.
Johanna, I would like to ask you a similar question. How could actually other countries or other communities from other countries support your cause in Hungary? Just by joining the Pride, that would not be enough, right?
Joining our Pride March wouldn't be enough, because first we should change our government, but no one else can change our government, only the Hungarian people. So exactly. it's up to us. It's up to the Hungarian society. But of course, support from foreign countries is really important. Every petition, every demonstration counts. For example, last year when the propaganda law was introduced in Hungary, there were many demonstrations organized in Europe, in Paris, in Prague, in Berlin, in several cities in Europe, and this is very good, and this is very important for the Hungarian LGBTQ community. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, we should change our government, and this is our task.
Your task, and maybe the only one who can actually help maybe a little bit encouraging a change is also the European Union, because the European Union can also sanction in a way its member states. Mark, maybe then as a last question to you before we head to our Q&A is how could you, or how can the European Parliament further support the causes in its member states, not just in Eastern Europe but everywhere throughout the 27 member states?
We'll be very strong against the anti-gender movement, because there's a lot of money which flows from the anti-gender movement, which flows from Russia, from American evangelical circles into European, into, for example, Poland, Ordo Juris. You know how this is the Polish branch of this Ordo Juris in Poland. In
they made
the law. They yeah, Ordo Juris are behind that, for example, and we also have to. I think what also is missing, it's a big European think tank or association which counters this anti-gender movement. By the way, there's a conference this week in Berlin, where this is the subject, and some of my colleagues and also our coordinator from the intergroup is there, and to see. And we are making a report also every year in the European Parliament. Is a Finnish member, Vice President Heidi Hattula, on the anti-gender movement in Europe, and they're infiltrating a lot of different political spheres, institutions. They're everywhere, and they're very well organized and very well financed. And I think we should get our act together and a bit counter that. And that needs, of course, also financing. And but we shouldn't underestimate that movement. For example, an activist in Poland, which I know, Barsztajewski, who he was an artist. He made pictures. He made a whole artistic project on the LGBTI free zones, and he's the victim of slaps of these lawsuits. Slap lawsuits because he's an activist, and every city and every region, they make a special lawsuit, and the regions are being supported by the lawyers from Ordo Juris, etc. And he has pro bono lawyers, and there's very little money for him to defend, and he has to travel to all these tribunals, etc. So you see the difference, and I think that we need funding, more funding, be it European funding, but also private funding. We should work with philanthropy to really create an anti-movement to defend this the women's rights and human rights. And then also we need more courageous politicians, because it's a lot of political will. Look at Ireland, look at Malta, very Catholic countries too, very Catholic countries, Spain. They had politicians who dared to change things, and Malta is now #1 on the ILGA map for LGBTI laws, etc. Ireland is very much has good notes. So and there was also politicians, and in Ireland also, of course, the referendum, which helped. But I think civil society has an important role to mobilize society, to mobilize the people, because the people are ready for change, and for people are ready. But of course, media is very much controlled in Poland and also in Hungary by the government. So that's also a big problem. Information, false information, and etc.
So as I promised, we now open the floor to questions here in the room. Any questions so far? Please don't hesitate, don't be shy. We're just like a small bunch of people here, not that many. None? Really?
It's been a long day for everyone.
Yeah, I get, that's what I wanted to say too. A long day for maybe one question, okay. Can I get the microphone?
Is this working?
Can give you mine, it's very difficult.
No?
Thank
Yes?
you. So first I just want to say that I find all of you very, very inspiring. Obviously in different ways. It obviously is very intricate with how you've experienced these things. I also very much like the fact that you're able to find connections between this, and I wanted to ask if that is kind of also a driving motivation to keep going, because I think every single one of you found a way to say that, you know, even if things aren't ideal, you're able to see each other and gain power from that. And I want to say, or I wanted to ask if you think that there has to be more importance put on that as well, and to realize that these are, as you said, intersectional issues, not just with gender, but also with countries, where these issues are connected with each other. Thank you.
Right, who wants to answer first? So this was one for you three, I guess.
I think I have an answer already, because I heard that question 2 weeks ago in the Netherlands embassy. And the conclusion was what pisses us off the most, people, what keep us going on, people. It's just people. We just have to be together. We just have to make some bond, and you know, that's how I charge my batteries, as I thought, to just meet new people or go somewhere, meet some activists, and maybe not really talk about how bad it is in my country, but okay, look at my shoes, or maybe let's get some for a drink, or, you know, just be with ourselves.
What kicked me off in the beginning, when I was in the beginning co-chair of this LGBT intergroup, we were supposed to visit Poland, but then COVID hit. But then we had a 2-day virtual visit to Poland, where we met all the NGOs, and not only from Warsaw, but also from Lublin, from different areas. And that was such a heartbreaking moment for me. And then that's where every time I meet activists from countries where the situation is a bit more difficult, this gives me power, and also my colleagues in the intergroup, and you fuel us with fury sometimes to get to. We are sometimes a bit pushy also towards the Commission, but that's also our role as parliamentarians. But we get a big drive from what you do on the ground, and not only in Budapest and in Warsaw, but also in Lublin, in Pest, in many other cities in the in Pech. Oh, how do you pronounce it? Where you had the rural pitch in yeah, and that's very, very, very important to see. There is people on the ground fighting, and they give us a lot of energy.
There were a quite popular sticker at the time. What are you talking about? Too queer to fear. Yeah.
Further questions? Oh, up there, great.
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, hi Alicja. First of all, a big thank you for all of you to come. Of course, Alicja I already know beforehand, but also for Joanna and Monica, I'm very, very pleased to have you both here. I think your stories are inspirational to all of us, and hearing them makes me very angry again when I hear this injustice and inequality even not so far away. And that's why, also for those who are not here, I think that's maybe the more important message. It's like why Luxembourgers, or here Western Europeans, sometimes are too lazy and sitting on their asses and say like, yeah, we have already so many rights and whatever. It's like, how can we support you? How can we also get again active and do activism for you and push and help you from over here? Because we're all for it. We really want to make the world a better place for all of you.
Well, actually, there's a lot of ways to support us, I think, and my colleagues probably will add up. But, for example, Lithuania this year was reviewed under Universal Periodic Review Mechanism of United Nations, and we received 29 recommendations from various countries, which makes our cause visible, makes our situation more visible, and of course it is important to push your government to push our governments, so to say, to make a difference. Do not afraid to advocate for human rights.
As I said, it's all about human rights, no extra rights, and that's what those who are against us, they say that we want apparently extra rights. No, I don't want extra rights. It's just the same rights and no discrimination. That's all it is. Actually, it's quite easy, but it's terrible that it is so difficult to realize.
Another question up there.
Yeah, I have a question concerning intersex babies. In Luxembourg, they are mutilated. Also, children with variation of with sex characteristics, or variations of sex characteristics. At you three from other countries, question: what is the situation in your countries, and how do you work to try to protect them? Because in Luxembourg, we failed. We failed, we have done many things. We have no visible intersex activists, a taboo, a total taboo, excuse me for my English. It would be interesting to know your situation and how to try to deal with it. And to Mark, I have to pass to German because I'm not able to explain it in English. Wir wissen, die Europäische Kommission und die europäischen Institutionen haben ja eigene Versicherungen. Und wir haben schon mal an Frau Dalli geschrieben, wie sie in Bezug auf Intersex, Genitalverstümmelungen, also ein Punkt ist die Ärzte, die Kinder mutilieren. Das andere ist aber, dass wir auch Leute haben, die das bezahlen, nämlich Versicherungen. National wäre natürlich die Frage zu stellen, warum zahlt die CNS überhaupt noch solche Sachen, aber du bist jetzt europäisch unterwegs, sprich ein anderer Hut, und wir haben Frau Dalli diese Frage gestellt, wir haben nie eine Antwort bekommen. Meine Frage ist auf der Ebene, denn ich denke immer, du weißt, ich bin selber Arzt, kein Arzt wird etwas tun, wenn er nicht bezahlt wird dafür. Wo stehen wir da? Und gibt es da Überlegungen über den Access, vielleicht mal an dem Stopp von der Genitalverstümmelung gesunder Kinder anzusetzen?
You should answer first how the situation is with intersex in your countries, and then I will.
Well, in Lithuania, of course, the situation is subjected to lack of regulation. It falls in gray zone. It does not sort of follow health protocol whatsoever. So intersex people are left in a sort of legal vacuum, so to say.
So in Hungary as well, there is a lack of regulation in the country. And sadly, there is no NGO no NGO dealing with specifically intersectional questions. And unfortunately, intersexual people, but also asexual people, and their issues are let's say invisible in the country. Yeah.
Same. Lack of everything.
Yes. Last week I met Dan, who is the director or president of the European branch of the International Organization of Intersex Persons. It's a very active NGO in Berlin, and we have every year contacts with this organization, and I know that there's very few countries who have laws to ban this operation on intersex babies, to put them into a sex. And Erik, I remember very well the fantastic seminar you organized, where you had adult intersex persons, and on the other hand, this doctor, this pediatrician from Switzerland, retired, who made this mea culpa, and he said he didn't realize what crimes he did at that time. And this made me very sensible for this subject, and I pushed also when the last government was formed in Luxembourg to have it in the coalition agreement, and unfortunately there is no law yet, and I don't give up my hope that they at least will come up with a law, and this has to happen because we cannot continue doing that. The problem is also the problem is that there is still so much taboo around all this that nobody comes out as an intersex person in Luxembourg, unfortunately. And estimations, and Erik, correct me if I'm wrong, 1.7% of people being born or babies being born or persons in the world are intersex. Some people even don't know if they don't do that they are an intersex person. And apparently it's about the same percentage of people with red hair that are intersex people. This 1%, just to give you a comparison to see, you know, but we don't see them, we don't know them, and internet has done a lot also with the trans community, and I hope that through internet these people will come out more, will group and see that they are not alone. I often compare it with 50, 60, 70 years ago when you were a gay man or a lesbian woman or a transgender person, that you said something is wrong with me, but I just try to go with the flow, not do anything. And then there was activists fighting for our rights, so, and we all profited from that already. And I hope that internet, and I hope that there will be more awareness for the intersex community, because these operations, I don't want to go into details, but Erik, you know it. This is mutilation, and we have the the gender-based violence. We work on that, and we had a report also in the European Parliament on that, and we want the Commission to have, and they will legislate on gender-based violence, and we put some paragraphs in it linked to the mutilation of babies and of young children. We really need a legislation to forbid that, because that's
and for legislation
terrible.
to pass, you need more visibility, more understanding, also in society, because civil society is a big carrier of emotions, a big carrier of a movement, and for that you need more visibility. I think
it starts.
It has been mediatized even here in Luxembourg. We tried, but then it's very difficult as well to make people understand only by doing one news report. And many in the beginning, when you introduce something that people don't know, they are afraid of it. They're like, what is that about? It's just something new, and they are just inventing new stuff. And you hear loads of reactions to that. And I think it needs activism to keep.
It's totally nothing new, but it has always existed. And the problem is already other legislation interferes. When a baby is born, within 6 days you have to go to the commune and click if it's a boy or a girl, and then this is already where it starts to you know, and
it's very restrictive.
It's so, and there's very little information, and but thanks to Intersex and Transgender Luxembourg, you've done some lobbying with the medical, with some doctors, but still I hope that you will be heard, and that you will have more support also from government and from cities to help you. I know your situation very well, Erik, and I still am very proud of all the work you do. And I always say it when I'm in other countries. I mention ITGL Luxembourg, which is the Intersex and Transgender Association in Luxembourg, that we managed to have the law. You remember the law on legal gender recognition. We had it voted by 57 members in our parliament out of 60 members, and it was because of you and the work you did with the parents. They brought the politicians are sometimes afraid of activists. I'm not afraid of activists, I'm a former, but a lot of colleagues are afraid of activists, and you did excellent work with parents, and that was very, very, very fruitful, and that helped. And I hope that one day we will have parents who come out and they say, we have an intersex child, or we have an intersex baby, and nobody was there to help us. We need help, and to raise awareness. This is something I think is important, because the only place they can go is contact Erik and his team, but there should be also institutional help, and we need to change the legislation on this. I'm very much convinced on it. But again, this is something also, we had the conference on the future of Europe, and there was a big majority of the population who said that health should become a more European competence. And maybe if we manage now to change treaty, we could legislate. For the moment, the European Union cannot do any legislation on that, because there is no shared competences when it comes to health policies. And COVID showed us that we need more European health policies. So, and we are trying to work for a European health union, and this could be a subject, because this is a health issue also. It's a human rights issue, but it's also a health issue. If you mutilate people, this is also a health issue.
Are there any more questions? If not, I would like to end this evening by quoting a very famous woman, Simone de Beauvoir. She used to say that it only takes one political, economical, or religious crisis for women's rights, and in this case also LGBTIQ+ rights, to be put in jeopardy, and you should never take your rights for granted. And I think that's a nice conclusion for this evening, and thus I want to thank my three female activists on this panel for traveling to Luxembourg, for enlightening us about the situation in our countries, and also for promoting activism. And also a big thank you to Mark Angel, who shows that activism can continue right into politics. That's the way it should be, to keep engaged and to fight for what you believe in, for the cause you believe in, either on the political level or on the roots where you should be, where it's very important, where it really matters. And I thank you, our audience here. There are not many, but I think you are very engaged and you are very interested, and I think some of you have been here for quite a long time. So really thank you for your attention, thank you for your interest, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. With that, I think we can close today's session. Please take all your belongings, trash with you, so we can leave this place clean. And then for all of you, I hope we see each other on the weekend for the march, for the Pride. And yeah, so bring your best smile and see you there. And
Das ist Schwan. Das ist Schwan.